Look, you're absolutely right. And of course, as you say, Chief of Staff to Malcolm Turnbull in that year of living dangerously of 2009, I had inside running on all of this. I know those arguments. I wear the battle scars, but there was very much a view that if you opposed the carbon pollution reduction scheme that Rudd called it, you would consign yourself to opposition. But instead, Rudd backed down. Rudd and Wong pulled their ETS, and Tony Abbott went on to really win the 2010 election, but claim it properly in 2013. So the point here is it's not an either or, is it? You can't just say scrap net zero by 2050 and do nothing. The coalition would need to say, A, they're going to do something to give us affordable, reliable electricity and have a longer term, more viable plan to look after the environment and reduce emissions, surely.
Well, I mean, meanwhile, what's happened here is that the government will significantly miss its 82% renewables target by 2030. And that's from Ross Garnaut, who is the godfather of climate change and is an enthusiast for renewable energy. And we shouldn't be surprised. Again, as I said to you last week, look around the world. The latest statistical review of world energy records that last year, 2020-24, the world burned more coal, gas and oil, the fossil fuels, than in any previous year. And more than 80% of the world's energy demand is still met by fossil fuels. Wind and solar account for 5 to 10%, if that. So put the Australian debate in a global context and you'll realise that scrutiny of the government's net zero policy is bound to pay political and economic policy dividends.
I think that's right. If you put the right policy out there, then the events and the facts are going to bolster your argument over time. You've got to make it well. I don't think the coalition have run any arguments well over the past few years, except perhaps their opposition to the Voice as the exception that proves the rule. But my argument is, I would say that the coalition, the right of centre, should really be all about what works, what's pragmatic and what works, rather than getting bogged down in any ideology, whereas the left are on this ideological crusade to save the planet. So the point here is that current technology cannot deliver net zero and is bound to create a lot of energy cost and upheaval in the process. So what the coalition needs to do is outline that fact, the fact that we're running into trouble, and put up a practical measure that is an alternative. Now, nuclear is part of that. And as you say, renewables are here. They're not going to go away, but you need to keep them as a reasonable share of the energy grid, and then use other technologies like gas and nuclear to make sure we've got sufficient and reliable supplies.
But also hold the advocates of net zero energy to account. And their lodestar here is Germany and the European Union. Germany has invested so many hundreds of billions of euros in its green energy transition over many years. And no one can really name the precise amount of how much they've put into the energy transition. Yet the share of wind and solar power in Germany's energy mix is declining dramatically. And there's no surprises why. It's because the months when they don't do well with wind and solar, those months are usually wind-free, onshore and offshore. So if the coalition highlighted what's happening around even the enthusiastic countries for net zero and point out that they're having problems, then it shouldn't be too difficult to point out the risks and consequences of net zero here in Australia, Chris.
Yeah, you're right. Apart from Germany, you can look at Spain, you can look at California. There are plenty of examples. Chickens are coming home to roost. Thanks for joining us, Tom. I appreciate it. I love it when you remind everybody I work for Turnbull. We do it every week. Tom Switzer there from the Centre for Independent Studies.